Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and today I am announcing the 4 Centuries project. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how good I am at coming up with ridiculously grand and pompous titles for reading projects that are nowhere near as ridiculously grand and pompous as they sound, but I'm quite pleased with the name the 4 Centuries project. So this is of course a follow-up of the 1818 project which I did last year. If you haven't been following my progress through that, I basically picked some novels from 1818 and read them exactly 200 years after they were published. I slightly failed at that. I did a whole video about why I failed, how I failed, and why I still think it's worth doing these projects, setting these goals. But the main reason for that is because it's fun to pick out books from a specific time and then read them and compare them to each other. So, the 4 Centuries project, I'm going to read in 2019 4 books that were published over the last, 4 centuries. I'm going to pick a book from 1719, 1819, 1919 and 2019. Now, reading 4 books that were published 100 years apart is by no means representative of what literature was at the time, and I'm not suggesting that every one of those books represents a whole year of literature or even a whole century of literature. That is not the case, but I do think it will be interesting to look at those books and compare them to each other and see what the differences were and see what the similarities were. They are also not from the same country, they're not in the same genre, so again, this is not a comparative study, this is not scientific in any way, it's just for fun. Just like in the 1818 project, I will review every one of those books individually in a video and basically create a playlist that way. And this is the TBR that I've chosen. The first book, published in 1719, is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. This is a classic. Everyone knows at least something about this book. I've already started reading it. I'm about halfway through. And I'm very excited to pick this book. It seems wild to me that this is 300 years old. 300 years ago, the world was a very different place, and that is definitely represented in Robinson Crusoe. And it will be interesting to discuss this book, not just as a story, as a novel, but also as a document of its time. And we all know about the more than problematic aspects about cannibalist savages and such like in this book, but it will be interesting to see this as a document of the colonialist era of Britain and just see how maybe thinking has changed and how maybe thinking hasn't changed in the last 300 years. So quite excited about doing the review video of that once I'm finished with the book. Next, from 1819, I'm actually going to pick a German book and I'm going to read E.T.A. Hoffmann's Das Fraeulein von Scuderi. In English, this is called Mademoiselle de Scuderi. I mean, I say in English, it's French, but that's the English title, I believe. This is a proper German classic. I did read this one in school. When I say I read it in school, I mean I was meant to read it in school, but because I was a really lazy and dumb student, I didn't read any of the books that I was supposed to read in school, so I'm really just catching up. If I remember correctly, this is a story about a jewelry theft. It's quite a small book, it's very little, it's a novella rather than a novel really. And I think it will be quite interesting. E.T.A. Hoffmann is one of the really big figures in German 19th century literature, also interestingly in German 19th century music criticism, but he's mostly known today as an author of the dark romantic style of literature. So if you want to read along with me, I would highly recommend picking up a translation of this. I will link one in the description box as well, of course, and just giving this a go, especially if you have not yet explored any German literature. So we jump from 1819 to 1919, and that is the book that I am most scared of reading, and I am reading Night and Day by Virginia Woolf. Have you not heard of Night and Day? No, me neither. Apparently it's not one of her best works. I believe it was slightly before she sort of came into her own as an author. and I have read a few reviews that say that this is quite a boring book, that it's supposed to be like a continuation of this sort of salon domestic novel like a Jane Austen, but it just wasn't as refined as she would later become. Now, I have not yet read any of Virginia Woolf's fiction. I am in a way looking forward to reading this, but I'm also slightly worried that this will put me off the rest of her books. Well, this was the only one she wrote in 1919, so I'm picking it, and there is something to be said about starting with maybe a suboptimal novel from an author. For example, 2 years ago I read The Last Man by Mary Shelley, was less than impressed, and then Frankenstein came as a big positive surprise, so we'll see. This is quite a big book. As far as I know, it concerns the lives of women and men from different social classes and different positions in life, and it just sounds like a very, very British novel. It does intrigue me because it sounds like the plot of an E.M. Forster book, and I'm a fan of E.M. Forster, so maybe I will be positively surprised. The last book on my list is mystery. Well, I haven't picked it yet, basically. The last book on my list is a book published in 2019. I don't tend to read many new releases. The last one I read was the latest J.K. Rowling, which is Lethal White. But I do want to pick a book from 2019. I want to pick a book that's not yet been published. So this is where I really need your help. Are there any releases of this year that you're excited about, that you're looking forward to? I'm specifically looking for something that is my type of book. So for the 2019 read, I'm not looking to branch out into a wild genre that I wouldn't normally read. I'm very much looking for my kind of thing, but published this year. What is my kind of thing? Well, I do like contemporary and literary fiction that has a slow moving plot and is very focused on characters. I like beautiful prose but not too pretentious. Basically, if you think Kazuo Ishiguro, that's probably the contemporary style of literature that I'm most drawn to. Is he publishing a new book this year? How do you even know? Where do you find out about what's being published this year? Yeah, where do you find out what books are being published, and how do you pick about which new releases to buy? This is where I could really do with your help. So any suggestions, just post them in the comments. But it's likely that I won't actually pick the 4th book on this TBR until I have read the other 3. So there you go, the 4 Centuries Project. Grand name, very manageable project, really. It's 4 books. I'm sure we'll get those in this year. And even though one of them is quite big, Night and Day, big and intimidating, another one, the E.T.A. Hoffmann one, is very small and manageable. If you want to read along with me, if you're interested in doing this as a buddy read or as a read along, maybe a more formal thing, comment down below and I'm sure we can organize something. Other than that, tell me what you think about this project. I'm super excited. It combines my love of classics with my love for numbers ending in 19. I think this could be fun. Thank you for watching. Bye.